Hey everybody, we had a crash earlier today. I'm hoping Mubot's awake. I had to reset a bunch of stuff. It happened during the last class. I got the blue screen where you crash. See a lot of questions in the chat. Mubot is currently not awake. Enable the live streaming feature. What? Vince. Advance. I'm a little worried. I have no idea what's going on. Okay, maybe I shouldn't change things. Clicking links. I have no idea what happened. Mubot is currently away from us. He's not here right now, and I was trying to fix this in the background, so sorry for the delay. Mubot is currently not here today. We're going to try to fix that up. But can everyone hear and see me? I see a lot of questions in the chat. We got Chapter 10 stuff, a business magazine. Let me go ahead and reorganize 201 a little bit here, because we got some stuff coming up. And we'll be going through a lot of material coming up today and tomorrow. Let me look at the schedule for 201. Thank you to everyone who is here. Sorry about the delay. I think we started 5 minutes late right here. Went and grabbed some food, and we had the crash. Randomly, the whole thing just crashed. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Blanca, right here. So literally, I'm streaming, and my computer just shuts down during the last class. And now Mubot will not wake up. He's asleep. Go over here. It says failed to connect. Go to YouTube features. So I'm gonna have to look at that later tonight and see what happened to Mubot. But the whole thing crashed. Mubot has disconnected from YouTube. He's not with us anymore. And my phone rang when this happened too. So I was like, what the heck is going on? Let's go look at those due dates for 201 real quick. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, let's go look at those due dates and get everything situated here. Make sure we've got a good schedule for the class. Okay, so let's hop in here to the first class, but say hey in the chat. I'm gonna put this over here, put everything here. I know, right? Mubot is gone for now. Sorry, next class. Yeah, we can take that here in a little bit. We're gonna work up some 201 right now. Mohammed, we can do that here in a little bit. You bet. Also, check out today's class video. We did a lot of the activity. We might have done that one during class. So we're gonna look at the schedule for 201. Let's go look at the schedule right here of assignments. Make sure everything's looking nice and good. Crazy day already. What's going on? We've got, yeah, it looks good actually. Chapter 10 is not due till Tuesday next week. Good, we'll be doing that tomorrow. And Chapter 12 is not due until the 14th, so we'll be doing that coming up here soon. I think we got a good schedule of the due dates, so we should be good on that. Let's go over to Canvas. Oh, no worries, Mohammed. Everything just exploded. If you watched the last class, 320, I literally had it where the stream just shut down. So I did a lot of resetting of stuff and grabbed a little bit of lunch, logging back in, but it took more than a moment to reset up. But usually I don't have any issues. I've got everything set up, and then Mubot, he just won't log on right now. He won't appear. So no points. But let's change. I think the only thing we need to change right now is the due date for the Canvas content. That's the only thing that I would say is a little bit too soon right here. The Canvas content is coming up due next Monday. And so the project is there. Oh, why do we have the Canvas content there? We're going to put the Canvas content due on Friday next week. Ooh, I might be making a mistake. What does people think about the Canvas content be doing Friday next week? The Canvas content being due Friday next week. I'm almost thinking that the Chapter 12 is due. It's not long, and we've already done a lot of it. Should we put it on Thursday or Friday? What do you think? Canvas content due Thursday or Friday next week? We've already done it a few times today. Which one do you think, Mark? What do you think we should do? Thursday, let me put a vote in the chat. So you're going to vote. Canvas content due, and we'll put Thursday or Friday. Then we're going to start handling all the questions right here. This is the only due date we need to adjust. Canvas content due Thursday or Friday. Take your vote right now. A little chill music on as the world just explodes around us. Hopefully, I'll get Mubot fixed tonight. Have everything set up, and then it just breaks. I want to get my third cup of coffee. Take your pick right now, Thursday or Friday. Vote now. Friday is winning out. Let's start changing it to Friday all of a sudden, unless there's a switch and goes to Thursday. So we need to get this to Friday right here, next Friday. And I keep fearing in the background I'm just going to like crash again. Friday's still winning out. Like a bunch of 474 comes by and votes Friday. Oh, that switched right there, unless all of a sudden we'll end the voting now. And then we'll start looking at all the questions. We now have this extended to Friday. but please do not forget to do this. It doesn't take too long. I think some people have already done this. So if you've already done the Canvas content, 3 votes. Well, 3 votes, figured it out. So it is due Friday. Okay, we've got chapter 10 right here. A business magazine mailed the questionnaires to the human resources of the profitable companies. Let's go take a look at that question. We'll keep going down for those who put in questions. Mark and Blanca and Tiffany. We're going to start doing questions. Mohammed will do the questionnaire soon. Coming up, we're just going to dive into these office hours. Dive head first. Ooh! Mubot, no. We're not supposed to have tech issues. We're not like that. We're better than that, Mubot. Mubot. He's just not wanting to be cooperative today. It was so weird. We crashed, and then I logged back in, and Mubot won't load. It makes me sad. Here we go with some Chapter 10 almost loaded up right here. Chapter 10 is all about sampling. Oh, I think I found it. Top 200. To the, yep, I think I found it. Here we go. Hopping in, doing a Chapter 10 question. Let's do some sampling survey for 201. Let's do it. So we go. Does that mean we can do Chapter 7? And yeah, we'll do some. You bet. I bet. Definitely. I think, did you put those questions in? Put them in here right now, and we'll get to be doing them and ask questions about them. Like put a Chapter 7 question in, and we'll start doing that. We have some, we lose our notes because we reset. So here we are with a Chapter 10 sampling question. So when we do sampling, there's some key terms we should know. It says a business magazine mailed a questionnaire to the treasurers of the top 200 profitable companies and received responses from 22% of them. Those reported that they did not find that the survey intruded significantly on their workday. So the population is all people or things we're interested in. I have a million word documents pop here. The population is all people or things we are interested in. The population is all people or things we are interested in. Oh my gosh. The population, I hate when things go crazy. Population is all people or things we are interested in. So population, key term to know, all people or things we are interested in. That is what the population means, sometimes called the population of interest. So when we talk about a population right here, what are we interested in? So they sent it to the treasurers of the top 200. What do you think, A, B, C, or D? What are they interested in? So they mailed it out to these people. A little bit tricky. What is the population? The people they are interested in understanding. So what is the population? The group they are interested, it would be B. Now, it's a little bit weird because you might say maybe they want to understand all treasurers, but they didn't get responses back from everybody. They're trying to maybe understand this group of 200. I think that's maybe a little bit confusing. I think we write better test questions than that. Now, the parameter, and sometimes called the population parameter of interest, is what you want to understand about these groups. So the parameter, and it can be called things like the population parameter of interest. So this is just a longer way of saying the exact same thing right here. You will never hear me usually say population parameter of interest. It's literally just called the parameter, which is what we want to understand about the population. And sometimes people call this the population of interest, just meaning the group we want to understand. But it's still just the population. So understanding that there's a lot of ways to talk about these, like the population can be called the population of interest. The parameter could be the parameter of the population that we are interested in. But the key words right here are parameter. You bet. We'll be doing that here in a little bit. You got it, Mark. Awesome question. And so the parameter is what we are interested in understanding. So what we want to understand about the population. The parameter is what we want to understand about the population. So then we have to ask, what do they want to understand about the population? They want to understand the proportion of people who think it did not intrude on their workday. The proportion of treasurers who felt the survey did not intrude. Such a weird survey. Proportion of treasurers who feel it did not intrude on their workday. Awesome. Now, the sample frame is where people start to get a little bit confused. The sample frame is going to be all things we have access to in the population. This is a note card chapter. Ooh. This is my best advice. Put these on note cards, memorize these, know these back and forth. That the sample frame is everything we have access to sample in the population. So anything we could have theoretically sampled, any person we could theoretically talk to. If you go to the library, who's in your sample frame? If you go to the library, who's in your sample frame? Just explain to me, if you're inside the library talking to people, who's in your sample frame? You're going to talk to people in the library. Who's in your sample frame? So if you went to the library at UT, who would be in your sample frame? So you go to the library at UT, so who would be in your sample frame? Like who's going to be in your sample frame? What is the sample frame if you go inside? You're right. You're kind of right. And think about it. You're right with that. I can't give out points. You're on the right track. So I want to give the points for like, yeah. And so, but it would be anyone who is what at that moment. If you're talking to people inside the library, you could theoretically speak to anyone who is what. Like you're just saying, I'm going to talk to people inside the library. So your sample frame would be what? Your sample frame would be all the people who are what? You can say, I'm going to go to the library and talk to people inside the library. So your sample frame, if you go to the library to take a sample, would be the sample frame, which is anyone you could theoretically talk to. So it's not the people you talk to. It's not the people you want to understand. So the answer, good job right there, Mark. It'd be anyone inside the library, which is students and staff. You're on the right track with that. But anyone who's inside the library when you're taking samples is in your sample frame because you could theoretically talk to them. Does that make sense? It's anyone who's inside the library would be inside your sample frame because they're all theoretical people you could speak to. Now, if you speak to them, they will go inside of your what? If you speak to them, they will go inside of your what? So I hate that it's doing that. All individuals you take information on. It can be individuals or items, so all things you take item on. So what is it going to be? If you speak to them and they give you information, they are now part of your what? So only if they talk to you and they're like, hey, I'll answer your questions. Now they have become part of your what? They were in your sample frame because you could have theoretically spoken to them. So they're still in your sample frame because you were able to talk to them. But as soon as they talk to you and give you answers, they're now part of your what? Your sample. Great job right there. These are key terms to know right here. The parameter is a little bit different because it's the what we want to understand. So I'm going to highlight this right here. It's the what we want to understand. This is more like the who we want to understand. And this would increase your sample size by getting another observation. The sample frame is anyone you could theoretically speak to. I think that's the hardest one for people to grasp because it's not the people you speak to or the people you want to understand. It's the ones you could theoretically speak to. So anyone inside the library, if you're talking to people in the library, is theoretically in your sample frame, but only the people who talk to you are in your sample. And if you want to understand maybe UT students, then the population of interest or population is going to be UT students. If you want to know what they think of parking, then that would be the parameter. Does this make sense right here? Like I want to understand what UT students think of parking. Then that's the parameter, the thing I want to understand about the population. I'm going to go out to the library to take a sample. Anyone inside of the library would be in my sample frame because I can theoretically talk to them. If they do talk to me, they'll be in my sample. And I'm really interested in understanding what students think. So I'm going to sample students from the population of students who exist inside the library and the ones who talk to me. So hopefully making sense of these key terms right here when we have a sample, when we have a sample frame, when we have a population, and what the parameter of interest is. Key terms right here, putting them on note cards is going to be a huge help. A lot of these questions cover these right here. So the sample frame, this one, can't get it wrong, right? So it mailed a questionnaire to the top 200. So list of all positions, no. List of all people who work, no. List of all the treasurers at the top 200 companies. These are the people they have access to talk to. So they're specifically reaching out to these people because these are people they have access to. The sample would be the 22% who responded. That's the ones we take data on. Remember, our definition of the sample is the ones we get data on. The sampling method, this is where you're gonna get me. Not today, Ma Pearson. So it was a questionnaire. Said mailed a questionnaire, right? It's a questionnaire. Not a random sample. So it's really non-random. I don't like that one. It's really not the methods we talk about with simple random sample clustering, but it's a questionnaire, so it should be that right there. And because they say it's a questionnaire, so it's got to, I'm going to say questionnaire, it's not a questionnaire. And then it's mailed to all, so it's not random. So they mail it to all. So pretty following what it says. It's questionnaire mailed to all. Any potential sources of bias right here? Probably going to be some response bias, I think. Not response bias, it looks like. Sorry, not non-response. So you've got 3 sources of biases right here. And then response bias could also be the way in which people respond is biased based on the questions. And this question is a little bit biased. Like if we're asking if do these surveys intrude on your day, then it would be biased towards people answering the survey if it doesn't intrude on their day. But that's probably hitting upon our non-response bias. So let's write down the types of biases right here. Let's go over here and write down all of our bias types to make sure we know them. So once again, the types of bias that we are going to have are going to be response bias. And response bias is going to be the way in which the question is worded creates a bias in the way people respond. And I got to make that clear that it creates a bias in the way people respond, and that's response bias. How about this? Do you think it's fair that an 18-year-old can go to war, can get married, can have a dog, can have a house, can have a kid, but an 18-year-old can't buy a beer or even cigarettes these days, I think? Do you think that's fair, yes or no? What do you think? And just to look at the way the question was asked. When we asked, do you think it's fair that an 18-year-old but can't drink a beer? Yep. You can go to war, you can have a family, you can have a kid, you can have a house, you can have a dog. And it's like, oh, but nope. You want to go buy a beer? Nope. You get off a hard day of work at your job? Nope. So this is creating a bias. I mean, whether you agree with it or not, you're like, oh, that's totally not fair. We should change the drinking age. The real question is, should the drinking age be lowered to 18? That creates no bias. We're not implementing what we think is fair or not fair by simply asking, should the drinking age be lowered to 18? The first example of the question had response bias because I'm kind of putting my views out there, whether or not they're my views, but I'm putting views out there to push you in a direction to be like, that's not fair. We should lower the drinking age. But when we ask it with a non-biased way, we just say, should the drinking age be 18? You don't preface it with anything. Don't try to influence the person you're talking to. You're just trying to find out the views of people and not put bias in there, which would not be representative. That's response bias right there, where we put wording in questions to sometimes push people. We don't try to do that. It just happens with the way questions can be worded. Another type of bias right here is non-response bias. And non-response bias is when the people who don't respond differ in their opinions than the ones who do respond. And this is exactly what we're seeing in this question right here, because we're asking, does this survey intrude on your workday? So if they're going to respond to the question, that probably doesn't intrude on their workday. Probably a better thing to ask people might be something like, imagine if you went out and you asked people like a political question. Who do you think would be the most engaged on political questions? Just think, if you go out and survey UT students and ask them, hey, I want you to take a political survey, who would be the most likely people to respond? And not that they're going to be biased. The questions are going to be perfectly fine. It's going to be like, what's your view on this issue? What's your view on this issue? What's your view on this? We're not going to put any bias. We're going to say, what's your view on the debt ceiling? What's your view on this? We're not going to put any bias. We're just going to say, what's your view? No response bias in this. Poli-sci majors, people who are interested in this. So we're going to lose a lot of that middle ground. And that's what you see a lot of times with surveys, is that you don't get that middle ground. You're going to get the people who are either like very conservative, very liberal, maybe very Green Party. You're going to get the very engaged people here. And then you have a lot of people who don't respond to it. So these people who don't respond will be like, wow, UT is so engaged. Everyone has such a strong opinion on these issues. Well, it's the people who responded have strong opinions. So we're seeing non-response here because it's not representative of the students. Does that make sense right there, Mark? Like, the people with strong opinions are the ones who are going to respond. And then we have this non-response bias, so we don't get a representative view of UT students. The best way to remember non-response bias is that it's people not responding. The bias is what the bias says it is, that people are not responding. We have right here convenience bias. I can never spell that word. Autocomplete, thank you. So convenience bias is when the sample is taken in such an easy way, it is not representative of the population. Oh, great job, Mark, right there. This is like a mini lecture right here. We're just going through and giving the definitions. Convenient bias is something like you say, man, I really need to figure out this poll for my class. I need to talk to 50 students. Let me just put it out here on my Facebook. Do you think putting a poll on your Facebook would be a good way of collecting a sample of random students? Would putting a poll on your Facebook be a good way to talk to 50 random students? You put a poll on your Facebook. Yep, this is all chapter 10 right here and a good review of it. We've covered probably 50% of it so far. It's a lot of definitions in chapter 10. We'll be doing this tomorrow, so it's a great way to know the answers for tomorrow. Would putting a poll on your Facebook be a good way to find out the views of UT students? You just say, I need 50 people to respond to this poll, and you put it on your Facebook. Good way of doing it. You put it on your Insta story. Insta story? I don't know. I'm old. I'm a boomer. Totally not a boomer. If someone said, okay, boomer, I'd be like, that's my parents. I'm a millennial. Of course, we're getting old now. Exactly. Well, and so your Facebook friends might be students. You might say only if you're a student reply. But then think about this. Your Facebook friends are connected to you. Then their views are going to, I'm not saying all your Facebook friends are just like you, but friends usually share some commonalities. So it's not going to be representative of students. To put this out there in such an easy way, because you're just putting it out there, and we are running into a little bit of voluntary bias, where people who volunteer are not representative of the population. We've got one more bias after this. My favorite example for this is I go out to Ped Walkway and I say, who wants to do a fantasy football survey? Who do you think would volunteer? And it's a little bit like non-response, but who do you think is going to step up and be like, yo, I'd love to do a fantasy football survey. Ask me all your questions. Hey, what's up, Parker? Good to see you here. Who do you think is going to volunteer to take my fantasy football survey? The people who are most interested in fantasy football. So when we look at this right here, we're going to see issues where we see bias arising because the people who respond to the fantasy football survey are not going to be representative of all students. So voluntary bias is when we put something out there, athletes, and then they're not representative. Not with athletes, but having all athletes take the survey is not representative of students. The last bias right here, which is trying to escape the screen, we say, no, you cannot escape the screen. You got to hang out with the other biases on the screen. The last bias is going to be under coverage bias. Two spaces? Oh, it's just so big right now. Under coverage bias. The under coverage bias, and a lot of these can collide together, is when we do not sample enough of one group to be representative for the population. So what if someone said, okay, Brian's saying don't sample athletes. Sorry, athletes. What bias has Brian run into if he says, yeah, don't speak to athletes? Well, they're UT students. They're part of the population. And if Brian says don't sample athletes, then we're definitely doing what to the athletes? We'd have too many regular non-athletic students because you're either an athlete or a non-athlete. So by saying don't sample athletes, which would be biased, then what would we be doing? We'd be wanting the athletes in the survey. And these are all the biases right here. This is really good notes to have, understanding these definitions and the different types of bias that we'll be covering tomorrow. So really good review of definitions and bias types. We'd be wanting the athletes. If we said, don't talk to athletes, then it's bias. The survey does not contain a representative amount of athletes because we've undercovered the athletes. We don't have enough of that group in the survey. We've undercovered them. And it might just be the way it was designed. Like we didn't go to any areas on campus where athletes are at. We said, let's go to this dorm hall, this dorm hall, and this dorm hall. And maybe we went to certain floors. So then it's going to be biased because we didn't get enough athletes or off-campus students. Now we're not even getting off-campus students. So we're undercovering off-campus students. So there's a lot of issues that can arise. And those are all different types of bias. But it looks to me like we're going to have some non-response. I think we got everything. Yes, got that 100. Let's see here of that next question. Love it. Figuring things out. Things are going crazy. We got that 100 right there. Tiffany's question, great question, Tiffany. And Mark says, anything from chapter 10. I think chapter 7, the fast food hamburger problem for Blanca, coming next right here. Fast food hamburgers. There is a place here. If you're from Texas, you know of a little place called HEB. Shout outs to HEB, and thank you, HEB. They gave us some expired meat. You say, what are you saying thank you for? They refunded it, and they're also going to give us a free thing of meat. So thank you, HEB. That's really good. It was September 23rd on the meat. Sorry, HEB. We looked, and we were going to put it in the refrigerator, and we're like, what the heck? What are you doing? I'm pulling up the question from chapter 7. But we called them up, and they were like, oh yeah, we'll fix this. Sorry about that. We used to double check it. I understand. There's a lot of things. Maybe they thought I said October 23rd. I'm like, man, this meat is going to last forever. But no, it wasn't October 23rd. So the question is fast food and hamburger problem. I think we got it. There might be 2 of these. So let's go check out chapter 7. Oh yeah, we're going to do a chapter 7 one right here. So let's go take a look at this chapter 7 problem. There might be 2 of these, but let's do the fast food hamburger problem. Mohammed, we'll get into your question here in just a little bit. Fast food hamburger problem, chapter 7. Let's do it. The data below shows the fat from calories in hamburgers. A model was created to estimate the number of calories in a burger when fat was known. So we're saying, it has this much fat. I would predict it has this many calories. So continued. Oh, you bet, Tiffany, you got it. And let's go around here and let's copy the data. Copy to clipboard. Make sure to copy it. And then we're going to hit Control C or Command C, Control C on a PC, Command C on a Mac, just to copy it, hit it 3 times to make sure it does it. And then we're going to hit Done. Now that we've got it copied, we need to go over to Jump. 2 seconds while I get Jump loaded up right here. Jump, where you at? I need to get some Jump 16. I'm still running on Jump 15. And it always asks me for the license. I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Accept license. Update Jump and update Word later. Brian, you got to do that, man. All right, here we are. We're inside of Jump right here. So we got Jump open. You can be anywhere in Jump and go to File, New, Data Table. That's Control End or Command N. There's the quick key right there. And now we want to go to Edit. Don't click inside of it. Forgot to say that. Edit, Paste with Column Names. Edit, Paste with Column Names. This will put the data inside of here. So now you can see the fat going up and the calories going up. Is it associated? Probably is in some way. And let's go ahead and make a model right here. See what the question asks. We got the data inside of Jump. And explain why. So we don't need to make a model yet. Explain why you cannot use that model to estimate the fat content of a burger with 600 calories. So read what it says. A model was made to estimate the calories when fat is known. So that's saying calories is Y. We want to estimate the calories. So the calories was Y. And then the fat is X. So now it's saying estimate the fat. Well, wait a minute. Right? That's saying fat's the Y. So we're going to do that down here in a moment. That's predicted fat hat right there. So the regression model was for predicting calories from fat, not the other way around. It was this way. We were estimating calories from fat, which means we are predicting. The regression model was for predicting calories from fat. That is correct. So we cannot do that right there. So we can make a model right here predicting the fat from calories. And remember, we did copy this in here. I think you covered 3. Oh, awesome. We'll do some 5B then. Yeah, thank you, Mohammed, right there. Great work. And so we're going to go into here, and we're going to make a model that predicts fat. So we need to go to Analyze Fit Y by X. With Analyze Fit Y by X, this allows us to make a scatter plot, a bivariate combination. We go over here and we put the fat into the Y variable, which is the variable of interest. Yeah, definitely. And we'll do one more tool, and then we'll hop to Mohammed's question. Thank you, Mohammed, everyone. And I reset everything. I'll put calories inside of here. I wonder what it looks like when I crashed, because I literally went blue screen and just... And MuBot went away. He's gone. Playing my Happy Sad music. Looks like a slingshot or something. So here we are with our model predicting fat from calories. Let's put it over here on the side. A little chill music while we look at this. And what do we have right here? You can see as calories increases. What's up, Andrew? Good to see you here. As calories increases, fat increases. But come on, who does not want that triple cheeseburger right there? Oh, nice job, Kiana. You got this, Kiana. You got this, Kiana. Give him some positive energy. I can't give MuBot points. MuBot is currently lost. We're going to go find him eventually. But MuBot's currently away. He's on a trip right now. And so here is the intercept. This is the B0 estimate. Oh, it's like in a round. So it says 3 decimals. That is a crazy round right there. Interesting mathematics today. And then here is the slope coefficient. That is the B1 right there. Make sure you know that this is B0, this is B1. And I should point out that those values you see right here, the B0 is down here under the estimate of the intercept. The B1 right here is the estimate of the X variable. This is the slope variable, the X variable. And then also, last but not least, this model is statistically significant because the slope is statistically significant. We see down here with the P value. Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely. We got more than enough time, Tiffany. I think we'll do Mohammed's next, and then we'll come back and do yours, Tiffany. So we got this. You bet. Thank you, everybody, because we got more than enough time. We're just going to crush this problem. You ready? Because now that we are making a prediction with 600 as the X variable for the calories, we can go in here and put in the times the B1, which is the slope, and subtract, be careful, subtract from it 15.9. And why am I subtracting? It's because the intercept is negative. And what you probably want to do, if you want to double check your work, is you want to go look at your visual. Good things to do on the test. If you're predicting for a burger that is 600 calories, if you went up here, you would see it hits about here and goes over, and it looks to be about at 35. So a good way, I sent you a link to my... Oh, that's awesome! I'll be checking that out. We might show some group stock apps to begin class today, especially with Brian's computer crashing. I'm losing my mind. Computer crashed, MuBot went away. Get 100. Oof, got really scared right there. Got to get that 100. Good stuff right here. We're going to hop into Mohammed's question right here with 5B. Let's go check out some 5B. Let me load up R right here, hopping back. Okay, that's got 5B. I don't play these songs nearly enough. Loading a bar. Gonna check out some 5B, and we could check out some apps today in class. I want groups to kind of look at each other's apps, see what each other was doing, and get some inspiration. Oh, Blanca, did that make sense? Did you get that 100? 5B. We did... Mohammed, do you have a different one? We did 5B during morning office hours. So, here, I'll get you the link to it. Let me grab you the link, Mohammed, before we go. Said, wait, we might do another question here. We did 5B during morning office hours. I was trying to do as many new things as possible. And so here is, because I see the work on the screen that we did. We had to go back and do. So here is, yep. Here, I'll send you the link to it. I'll send you a timestamp link on it. Here is the link right here. It's morning office hours. And so that way, because we went through here and did it for a good, starts right here about, is this, here we go, right here. And then we go through and do 5B right here. Did we go through, we interpreted the lift and everything. So we went through and did 5B right here. We did 5A and 5B, I believe. So check it out right there. I think we've covered most of it. Yeah, but let me know if you see something we didn't cover. So feel free to ask. We're going to do another question right here. But since it's in this video right here, I always like jump around and since it's covered. But no, keep asking. And so check out this video link right here. I haven't labeled the video because crashing and everything. And so we're going to jump to another question. But if you're, Mohammed, you have preference. If you see another question we haven't done, let me know and be like, hey, Brian, do this one. And because when I looked at 5B, I saw I already had work in here for it. I did 5A and then 5B. We went in and did interpretations today. So got awesome. Late to the party, Kayla. Mewbot's away right now. Watch this. If I pull up Mewbot, we'll see if Mewbot works, and then we're going to do another question right here. Mewbot, come on, man. You can do it. Definitely. Yeah, might have time here at the end to check it out. Will Mewbot live? He died when we crashed. It'll say error connecting. Yep. That red message is not a good message. Bot attempting to connect to client. YouTube might have done something. How much time is left? I think we are... Let me go to the main screen here. We're going to do another question or two right here. My brain got frazzled with the... We got a lot of time. We got until 4:15 your time. Woo, 4:15. So we're going to keep going along right here. I think Tiffany has the next question. Let me look here. So, trying to go over any of the previous videos when I saw doing off stars. Oh, no worries, Blanca. Oh, they were talking about me not being here because of the crashing. Can we take a look at... Okay, I got that. I think Tiffany has the next one. Oh, correlation between... we have Mark and Tiffany's question. Correlation between potassium and cereal. And then Tiffany's question, results are based on telephone interviews. So let's go here and do Tiffany's question, then Mark's question next. Put those questions in the chat. We're just going to keep rolling through and doing questions. So put your questions in the chat. Account services. Now, I've gotten two... Do you ever have one of those days where it's just like... Things are going crazy? Today is that day for me. I'm getting those fake phone calls right now. Yep, we can do some Chapter 7, Ethan. We're going to do a little Chapter 10 right now, but put your Chapter 7 question in the chat, and we can do some Chapter 7. You got it, Ethan. Just say, hey, can you do this question? I'm working on it, and we will review it, and we'll go over the different ways to understand Chapter 7 regression. I'm pulling up the Chapter 10 quiz as we speak. Getting scammer phone calls? No, that would never happen in 2021. We fixed that problem. Researchers want to estimate the percentage of people who thought obesity was a serious problem. Let's find that problem. What's weird about these questions is that they sometimes change the way they look, which can make it hard to find certain questions. Okay, I found what could be it. There we go. Got it. Here we go. Researchers want to estimate the percent of obesity. Chapter 10. People think obesity is a certain problem. Chapter 10. Stat 201. Awesome. Connor's got a question. We got it. Chapter 8. You bet. Drop it in the chat. Starting to find the regression equation. You bet. Put the one in the chat you're working on, Connor. We'll get it worked on next. You bet. I think, well, Mark has one, and Mark's doing a similar type question. Has through G parts. You got it. Here we go. We got some definitions that we did earlier, so check out earlier in this video where we wrote our definitions. We'll probably be using those. The population is all people or things we want to understand. So let's go to our definitions. The population, sometimes called of interest, is all the people or things we want to understand. So researchers want to estimate the percent of people who thought obesity was a serious problem. Researchers waited outside a randomly selected fast food restaurant to question people. They find that 19% of restaurant customers believe obesity is a serious problem. Awesome. Yep. And then Ethan, the quiz one might change. So tell me which quiz question, like put the start of it and then I can find it. So they are going to be talking to people. So all people that go to fast food restaurants, they want to know people. Researchers want to estimate the percent of people. So although they are, you might say, well, they're going to fast food restaurants. True, which that means their sample frame will be people who go to fast food restaurants, which is the people they have access to. But it says they want to understand people. So ignore the later parts. It just says they want to understand the percent of people. So that is their population of interest because they want to understand people. Identify the population parameter of interest. This is, I want a 4-letter word. Whenever you hear population parameter, this is the what. What is it that when we say parameter, it's the thing, I can't say it. It's the what of it. The parameter, when we talk about the population, it's when you think about the W's, it's which one is it? I'm trying not to say it 10 times. The parameter is the what. What do we want to understand about this group? What do we want to understand about people? And the thing we want to understand about them, once again, that is the parameter. It's just a big word. It just means what do we want to understand? Someone could just say, what are we trying to understand about this group? You'd say, well, we want to know the proportion who think that obesity is a serious problem. That is the parameter of interest for the population. Lots of words right there. It's just what we want to understand about a group we are interested in. So try to break it down into things that make sense and saying, instead of saying population parameter of interest, the thing we want to understand about a certain group, the thing we want to understand about a certain group. So parameter is the what, and the population is the group we want to understand. So the portion of people who think obesity is a serious problem. Now, the sampling frame, once again, is the group we have access to. We did an example earlier today where we talked about you go to Hodges Library and you could speak to anyone inside of Hodges Library. So it's anyone you could theoretically speak to. The people who talk to you are your sample. The people you want to understand are your population. Which one was I asking right there? I don't know. And so right here, the sample frame is anyone we could have access to. You got it. Oh, I love that one right there. That's a fun one, Ethan. We'll do that here soon. We got more than enough time. We got like 45 minutes, tons of time. So the sampling frame is anything we'd have access to. So what do you think, A, B, C, or D? What do you think? Who are the people we have access to? Like what? I wish I could give out points. I can't press the points button. They do nothing. I press point button and it doesn't do anything. I mean, it'll make the noise. And then it'll put in the chat, but it won't do anything. Oh no, Mubot's not even awake, so he can't do that. It'd be restaurant customers. These are the people we'll be speaking to. So we are speaking to people who go to restaurants. I mean, all people who work at fast food. I mean, I don't see why a person who worked at the restaurant couldn't come out. So look at the first one again. All people. Better not be A up there. I've done this question a bunch of times. They do a weird thing every once in a while, and you get to see if it's weird, but I'm pretty sure right. Identify the sample. These are the people who are going to talk to us. So it's just people who respond to our survey. People leaving the fast food restaurant. My brain is breaking. They usually find 19% of customers believe obesity is a serious problem. It'd be the people who talk to us. This is such a weird way of wording it. So they speak to people. Okay, here's the thing. Researchers waited outside a randomly selected fast food restaurant to question people. So what they're doing is really weird right here. They're doing a cluster sample at location. So they are speaking to everybody. You walk outside and they say, you can't leave unless you talk to us. I wish they kind of said that in this, but that's the way to think about this. They're saying, hey, you just walked out of the fast food restaurant. You need to talk to us about what you think about obesity. And you're like, no. And they chase you down and they talk to you about obesity. So they're doing a cluster sample at location. Now, this brings us back to some important terminology we wrote down earlier today. Do we have that still? I think it's right here. No. Yep, here we go. This is from earlier. So a cluster sample is taking a whole bunch at once. You'd have to assume that this is a random fast food restaurant, and then we're going to speak to everybody at the restaurant who's leaving. So we are going to select all the individuals at this restaurant and speak to all of them. That's what it means by a cluster sample. We're just taking a whole bunch at once, and we're sampling everybody. So anyone who leaves the fast food restaurant will be part of our sample. It's just a cluster sample at this location. Identify who was left out of the study. I don't eat fast food. So people who do not eat fast food, right here, people leaving the fast food restaurant, people who work at the fast food restaurant, they could technically leave it. The people who don't eat fast food are no way, because they want to understand people. And if you don't eat fast food, you're not ever going to be in this survey right here. Identify any potential sources of bias. Well, we're probably going to see there's definitely going to be bias, non-response bias, undercoverage. Since those interviewed just left a fast food restaurant, their opinion about obesity may be different from the general population. That looks good right here. Response bias is when the surveyor asks questions in such a way, like the conduct of the survey questions could bias people. Non-response bias is when people who refuse to respond differ in their opinions than those who do respond. But I think we're going to see this right here. We should be okay. Ooh, 100. Ooh, that one got me scared right there. That was some tougher questions. One thing I want to point out right here is please write down these definitions. Here are the basic ones for the population, the parameter, the sample frame, the sample. Write these down, understand them, do examples with them, and then ask yourself, well, which of these would it be? Here you see the different types of biases. So these are all your biases right here. I'll display off the screen so you can take a screenshot or write them down. Feel free to pause the video, but these are your different types of bias, and we went over them earlier today. Last but not least, we also, in the previous office hours, went through and did the different types of sampling methods. So here's the different types of sampling method, and usually people get the first two very confused. So make sure to write these down, practice them, know how to identify these definitions, and in truth, this is like 80-90% of tomorrow's lecture. So if you're like, whoa, tomorrow class is going to be big, it's mainly memorization. You'll hear me saying that a lot tomorrow. Like, write these down, put them on note cards, know each one and know examples of them, and then be able to identify them. And that's got it. I think Mark had the next question. You bet. I think we can go back and do the amusement park one. You got it, Tiffany. We got a lot of time. 320, 474, 475. Muhammad, if you found another one I haven't done yet, let me know. So let's take a look right here. The next question I think was from Mark. Mark had a question on chapter 7. So we're doing some chapter 7 now. Mark, what was your question? The correlation between cereal and fiber potassium, which probability is associated with the... Aha. Let me go take a look here. Mark's question is about the cereal and potassium. So we're going to chapter 7, cereal and potassium. Chapter 7 coming right up. Chapter 7, cereal and potassium. Let's see here. Cereal. All right, let's do it. Talking about some R squared and R right here. Let's hop into this. Chapter 7 quiz on Stat 201. So with this right here, the fraction of variability is talking about what quantity. If you hear like percent of variation explained. So if I say like the fraction of variability explained or the percent we understand, what are we talking about? What value am I talking about here with fraction of variability? I don't usually call it fraction of variability. I usually call it percent of variation accounted for by the X variable when trying to understand the Y variable. What are we talking about? If I say fraction of variability understood in the Y variable, or understanding X gets us this close to understanding Y, how much of the variation in Y do we understand by knowing X? I'm talking about what? And that'll kind of answer the question right here. So if I say knowing X gets us this far to understanding Y, or blank percent of the variation in Y is explained by the variation in X, what am I talking about? Fraction of variability. We're trying to understand the Y variable here. So the fraction of variability, they're using a little bit different words right here to see if you get it. We don't always want to say the same thing. We want to make sure people understand it like as a big concept. So what are they talking about? What is the fraction of variability? They want you to calculate what? I'll give you a hint. Blank percent of the variation in Y is explained by the variation in X. So probably somewhere around 78 or 77. I'm estimating around somewhere around 77% of the variation in a cereal's fiber is explained by its potassium. Points. The buttons don't do anything today. They're trying to tell you about R squared right here. So we need to take the R, the correlation, that's correlation, and square it. And my estimate was about, and we're times it by 100. So 78.5% of the variation in a cereal's fiber is explained by its potassium. So good review right there. Good practice knowing that it's the percent of variation in Y explained by the variation in X. Also, that's the fraction of variability in potassium that is accounted for by fiber. So 78.5% of a cereal's variation in potassium is explained by its variation in fiber. So good stuff right there. Make sure to round. I know, right? The noises are still nice. Mubot is he's gone. He's gone to the dark world. He's evil, Mubot. What you doing, Mubot?
I am Mubot.
He's gone away for the moment, but I try to connect him and he says, nope, error message. Everything crashed and the Mubot said, I'm not coming back. Next question, I think Ethan had one right here. And did someone else? I think Connor. I'm on question 5 on chapter 7, trying to find out how to find the regression equation. Connor, put it in the chat, and we will do it right here. We're gonna pull up Ethan's questions right here. So we're gonna pull up Ethan's question right here. Put your question in the chat. You're welcome, Mark. Great stuff. Good practice. So we're gonna go to Ethan's question right now. I'm gonna look for some more music this weekend too. This is all free to play YouTube music. People be like, hey Brian, can you play this song? I say no, I'll get copyright takedown again. It's about the math scores and the verbal score. Yes, we can do that one here in a little bit. You got it. And so we'll do the math scores and verbal score. Do you have the regression solver? Have you downloaded the regression solver? That's the big help for that one. The regression solver makes it so you don't have to solve them all individually. And I think Ethan was asking about chapter 8 homework question 1. So make sure to have the regression solver downloaded. There was a problem with the page. Yeah, no, you're doing great, Kayla. Excellent work. It's all about that practice and just repeating the concepts. Don't think so? Here, I'll show you where the regression solver is at. Make sure to get the regression solver. It's a huge help. The regression solver is located, if you go over here to the class and you go over to the modules, under the modules tab, and I'll disappear so you can see it. The regression solver is going to be located right here. And this helps out with the later parts of the question. When you have to put in the values, we can take a look at it here in a little bit. But the later part of the question, I would use the regression solver. It's going to solve everything out for you. So that's got that. Let's take a look at the next question. We'll come back and we'll be doing it here in a little bit. And we got some question 8 homework. Let's go check out some question 8. Question 1, homework. Here we go. Chapter 8, question 1, homework. What is the correlation? Oh, how can we find the correlation right here? So how are we going to find the correlation from this? Look at your output. We got r squared. We got here the standard error. I think it's the standard error of the model. We probably won't be using that. We don't talk about that much. Yeah, which mention what it is though, because the quizzes are different ordered. The quizzes, great job, Mark. I wish I give you points right now. Hit that button that makes the noise. Mention which problem it is, because the problems on the quizzes change order. So if you tell me what the question says, I can find it. Since the questions change order. One thing to know about r squared is if you are square rooting it, make sure to do it as a decimal. So that's kind of where an error might occur. Then also, is this positive or negative? Is this positive or negative right here? Is this positive or negative? How would I possibly know if this is going to be positive or negative? There's actually 2 ways to know this is positive. There's one way, and there's another way. The way to know that it's positive is to check the direction if you can see the plot visually, or check the slope. This is the slope coefficient. This is the intercept. Intercept, B0, slope, B1. So we can see that it's positive. We don't have to worry about making it negative. And that should be right. 2 decimals. That's a hard round on that. Interpret the intercept right here. So this is years since 1950. So in the year 1950, because that'd be 0 years since 1950, I'm not looking at the question yet. This is predicting the rate, 3-month bond rate. So we would expect when it's 0 years since 1950, or when it's the year 1950, the interest rate on a 3-month bond would be 0.302. On average, interest rates during the period, we're doing slope. So for each additional year since 1950, we would expect the interest rate to increase by 0.266129. This is the coefficient of the slope. It's the x variable. This is the coefficient of the intercept. I want to make this as clear as possible that in this output right here, in this output, this is B0 and this is B1. This is B0 and this is B1. If I need chapter 7, most recent ones, check out the most recent ones, and we'll be doing some more chapter 7 here soon. Destiny, put the problem in the chat, and we should have enough time. We still got 30 minutes, so we should be able to get to it. So on average, the interest rates during this period increased by about, and there's a lot of crossover between these, by about, and then this is a percent, so it is already in percentage, 2 decimals, round it, starting off with an interest rate of this right here. So it's increasing by about this, that's the slope, by this right here. What does the model predict for the interest rate in the following? So here's the important thing to do. We need to write a regression equation. Take a moment right here. Could you write the regression equation from this output? Who can write the regression equation from this output? Take a moment, see if you can write the regression equation. Take a moment. I think it says 2020, right? Oh my God, it's last year. We're so far in the future. I'd be 40 soon. Ah! Sooner than later. So 2020 would go over here. Oh my God. Horrible handwriting. Y hat equals B0 plus B1X. Nice. Thank you so much, Kayla, right there. Kayla, you get the happy point sound. That's all I got today. So we are trying to predict the rate. So predicted rate equals to B0. Thank you so much, Kayla. Great help right there. That's a 3 if you can't tell. I'll make it look pretty. So we're just writing the equation with the information given. It's a lot of numbers. And then we go plus because it's positive slope. And then we've plugged in the value of x. So that's the equation right there. Best handwriting ever. What can I say? And we're just going to take and times 20. Ooh, I made an error. You would probably see this. It's not 2020. It's years since 1950. So to do this, you plug in 2020. And what should I put in for x? I almost made an error. So close. It's like, that's weird. That's a big number. So what should be my value of x? Because x is years since 1950. Almost made my second error today. Stream crashes, Mubot goes away. Brian makes 2 errors in one day. What's going on? So what would be the value of x in this model? It's the year since 1950, and we're putting in 2020. Exactly. Boom. Kayla, you got it right there. Kayla just doing an amazing job. That is so great. Point noise. I still think it sounds cool too. I'm going to get out of the habit of hitting point noise. And then we add to it the intercept. And this is definitely an extrapolation of the model. The model would not go out this far. So we put in right here round to the nearest integer. And that's a bad idea. It's a huge extrapolation. Check answer. And it might say, why is this a bad idea? Would you expect this model to be accurate? Then, no, I would not expect this model to be accurate. It's an extrapolation 40 years beyond where the model goes. This, not really extrapolating 40 years beyond at the end of the data set, is not likely to be accurate. So we don't really want to extrapolate that far into the future. Extrapolating is when you go outside the X bounds of the model. So going outside the X bound, I think there's only 2 questions on this, right? Should we just finish this off, finish off Chapter 8 homework? Have all of Chapter 8 homework in one spot. So let's just, I vote, Brian's voting, let's finish off Chapter 8 homework right here and just be like, Chapter 8 homework, done. So here we go, and then we'll go back and do some more questions right here. With this one right here, we have a, please, you got it, Ethan. Hey, for you, Ethan, you got it, man. So for these data right here, we'll do a pause. Wait, I know. Later tonight when I'm looking at the video, it helps me to have these sections right here when I do the breaks between videos. Because that way I can see where the chapters are, where I can put the slices in the videos. Really quick, if you get an R-squared, does it want you to round to 2 or 3 decimals? Which one are you working on, Anastasia? Do what it says. If you're doing it for like one of our interpretations, just include a bunch of decimals, like 2 or 3. If for some reason my Pearson counts you off and you think it's not fair, just let me know. I do give points back. I don't always give points back, but if there's a lot of people who have emailed me and said, hey, Brian, I rounded up just a tiny bit here. like they had 0.001 and it was like 0.0016. I'm on question 3 on the 7 quiz. I don't know which one that is. If you think it unfairly takes off on you, just let me know. If you think it unfairly takes off, just let me know and I'll give the points back. So you got this. You got this. Great job working on it. We'll hop here and finish off the quiz right here. Let's check it out. So this one right here is a data set looking at the life expectancy and the gestation. So we're predicting gestation, which is how long people are pregnant for, or not necessarily people. That's people. And we have right here, you're welcome to stage anytime. And so now we're looking at the life expectancy of 81 years of humans and the gestation period of 9 months. That's what this represents. 9-month gestation period, human, and 81 or so years life expectancy, human. So what do we have right here? We have right here a correlation, and this is not very strong. It's moderate. Do you think the association would be stronger if humans were removed? Let's look at it. So remember, outliers can do what? I wish I could throw out some points. What can outliers do to our data? Here is the correlation with the outlier. And here's the correlation without the outlier. So when you look at this, it gets tighter. Tighter is the strength, especially when we're talking about linear stuff. It's tighter around the form of it. So how tight it is how strong it is. And it looks tighter, so it looks stronger. Removing humans would make this a stronger correlation, a tighter relationship. So it would be stronger, and the slope would increase. The slope would be a little bit lower. Anything except with the median. No. That's outlier kryptonite. No. This is a weird wrong answer. Like it's easier to match a point through fewer data points. Yes, but that's not why. It's going to increase the correlation and the slope would go up. So it'd have a stronger, like by steepness of slope, which is not right. There'd be a greater rate of change. Do you want to call it that? Is there reasonable justification for removing humans? Sure. Let's just be like, I never forget that. You'll never forget. Never forget. Always remember. Restricting the data set to non-humans would be okay. Like, sure, why not? Let's just not talk about humans. No humans today. Now, here's where we get into the model itself. Here we have the intercept for the model. This is B0. Let's make sure people know this. And then when you're looking at this right here, you have B0 and you have B1, and then you have R squared, which is the percent of variation Y explained by the variation in X. So if you did want to write out your model, you could predict the gestation period from the intercept plus B1X and put the life expectancy in here for X and receive out the gestation period prediction. Important to know how to do that. We do that with some problems, and you need to know that this is the B0 estimate. I hate that they call it constant. They just want you to see a bunch of different ways it can be called, but that is the intercept, and then this is the X variable right here, so that is the slope of the X variable. The association is moderately strong. This is the new one. It's definitely not moderately weak. It'd be way more spread out if it was weak. And it's not perfect. If it was perfect, everything would be directly on a line. So we're good on that. And now we go down here. Interpret the slope. So for each additional year of life expectancy, we would expect the gestation period to increase by about this much. So we have here, it's going to increase by about, and we just need the slope coefficient right here. The slope coefficient is this one. That's the increase we see between the two individuals. And next we have a certain mammal has a life expectancy of 18 years. So what are we going to multiply by 18 right here? Help me out with this output that's above my head. What am I going to multiply by 18? So think mathematically like, okay, that's the value of X. So that'll be multiplied by what value? Like a certain mammal has an 18-year life expectancy. And you could about see, the answer's still on the screen. You could about see where the answer is going to be. I'm estimating the answer is going to be about here, which is that 50, 100, 150, 200, 250. So I'm estimating that's where a line would go through. I'm saying it's about here. I'm saying about 235. So we'd need to multiply 18 by what? 18 is the value of X. 18 will get multiplied by what? To solve this out. And what I'm saying is if people don't see it, yep, you plug it into the form. Yep, exactly. So I didn't write it out this time because I'm going to try to do a few more problems here. If we had a line going through this data, the line would go through something like this. And if we went to 18 and went up and made a prediction, this is about the value of Y we would get, and it looks like 235 or so. That's just an estimate. So now we need to put it into the equation, which that line there has the following equation. it has the equation predicted gestation. I'm just going to write that as gest predicted of 86, and I'm rounding the numbers. Do not round them when solving this. Plus 13, this is a rounding of it, of life expectancy. And we need to plug in here the values and carry decimals. That's just a rounded version of those numbers right there, where we have B0, the top number, and B1, and then X in there. So I'm going to not round the numbers while I solve this right here, because we want to do it without the rounding. I'm estimating it's about at 235 where the highlighted region's at. So I'm going to take the 12.9213 and plug in times 18. So that is doing 18 times the X plus, and I was a little bit off, it looks like, 86.827. There we go. And I was pretty far off. Yeah, I guess my line should be more sloped. This seems to be right. Usually I'm not that bad with my drawings, but today that was not it. Today's just one of those days. Just MuBot going away. Do not round to the final answer, then round to 1 decimal place. Don't do it. We got it. Drawing was a little bit off. Drawing should have been, retry this drawing again. Then we're going to do some SAT problem, I think. Looks like our drawing should have been maybe something like this. Then you just check their equation. I don't know how they drew that plot. And you don't have the data to mess around with, which I wish you did. So, but just plugging in the numbers right here, knowing where to plug in your numbers is very important. And that's got it for this question. Let's go do some SAT problem, I think. Time for that. And then, Tiffany, I think we still have time to do some more Chapter 10. Okay, let's do some Chapter 7. SAT problem coming up right here. The SAT problem. The scary SAT problem.
This problem is tricky. You'll need the regression solver to make it easier. If you don't have the regression solver, it's a lot less fun. Is it question number 5? Found it. Here we go.
Need to get ready for some Halloween fun. We got to have some more fun for Halloween this year. Always have fun for Halloween. So this is a model predicting what? I want a 4-letter word in the chat to tell me this model is predicting what. Be very careful to see that this model predicts what variable. This model predicts what variable right here. It's like, okay, this is predicting this because it's in the what position. It's the predicted, not the predictor. The explanatory variable is on the x-axis. The y variable is the predicted, the one we want to understand. Why do people get a certain score in which category? The y variable is the one we want to understand. Like, why are people scoring this good on this section of the SAT? Well, maybe their verbal score explains it. And the variable of interest, these are a lot of synonymous words, is the y variable, which is math. With Windows being rated, it should be Excel. Should open in Excel. So make sure you have Excel installed and use Excel to use the regression solver. So make sure Excel is installed. Makes it a lot easier. You can solve these problems by hand using the formulas in the notes. That's all the regression solver does, is it solves them by hand. It solves them for you. But with Excel, it's a lot easier. Just punching the numbers makes it a lot easier. Because you don't have to solve them by hand on the test. So why do it for homework? I made it a while ago, so I was like, why are we having people do this? Let's just make it easier. People were spending like 5-10 minutes solving something. I was like, here, just use this, plug numbers in, solve it. Now let's interpret it. Let's make sense of the data. So the association between math and verbal scores is moderately linear. Yeah, and positive and strong. Students with higher verbal scores typically have higher math scores. This one reverses it, and it's moderately linear and positive. It's not strongly, negative, no. No. Are there any students who do not fit the pattern? Q, straight enough. What do you see right there? I see an outlier. Q, straight enough, no outliers. Then you can show me the regression. Yeah, we're going to be using that here in a second, Ethan. You got it. That's what we're going to be looking at here as we work this problem. We're going to see the regression solver. That is an outlier right there. Q, straight enough, no outliers. That one is an outlier, which is a problematic point that is going to reduce kind of our R squared. It's going to pull the model away from maybe what the truth is. Maybe. There's no way to really know. But we don't want outliers. That point is very bad right there. It's not good for our model. So this person, if you look, has a verbal score close to what? Just a quick estimate. What do you see? What do you think their verbal score is? What do you think that person's verbal score is? Well, it's very easy to tell what their math score is. You can just look right here. The verbal score is probably blah, blah, blah. What do you think? What do you think that verbal score is? Verbal score, you just go here to the x-axis. You say, here we go, and looks to be about there, and then you trace up. That's where that person is. Their math score looks to be 800. Great job. It's me, probably. 250. You got it, Connor, right there. Here's 50 points of noise. Mubot's not awake. And so they had a verbal score of 250 and a math score of 800. Good. Yes, right there, Kayla. Yep. I mean, close enough. So we're good enough on it. They have a very low verbal score. Once again, it's probably me, and a very high math score. Now we have a correlation. And when you see R, your brain should just say correlation. So once again, important note to have right here. So once again, tips for the test. Know your notation. R is correlation. Know your notation. R is correlation. So how can we get R squared from R? Well, just take R and square it. Oh, yeah, let's do that. There we go. That's R squared. R squared is the percent of variability in Y explained by the variability in X. As in 31.6% of the variability in math is explained by verbal. I think we have it right there. And what's the difference between the two of these? Okay. Students who score one standard deviation above in math are expected, below. No. This one indicates a negative relationship. This one indicates a positive relationship. Be careful, almost tricked me. This one has the wrong, if you can't see it on my head, has the wrong R squared value. So this one is indicating a negative relationship that if people score one standard deviation above, then they would score below in the other one. That would indicate a negative relationship. There's a positive relationship. So people who are scoring generally higher on one generally score higher on the other. And we can see that here visually as the positive relationship exists. Also, the correlation is positive. So a lot of indications that if you score higher in this, you'll generally score higher in this. Generally, doesn't mean you will. Now, this is where we need the regression solver. Let's make sure people see where it's at. The regression solver is going to be over here, right here. This is under modules. And under the modules on Canvas, scroll down to Chapter 7. And in Chapter 7, you will see the Regression Solver Pro 3.2. And what Regression Solver Pro 3.2 does is it solves a lot of these things for you where you'd have to do the equations. These equations are in the notes, so you can solve it by hand. And we're just loading up the Regression Solver Pro right here. Make sure to have Excel downloaded. It's free from UT, as is Jump. We can use Jump and Excel free from UT. Thank you, UT. And let's enable editing on this and get it opened up. We're good to go. And here's what you get. The Regression Solver Pro right here allows you to input, one, the value of correlation, which is R, the standard deviation of the Y value, which is S sub Y, the standard deviation of the X variable, which is S sub X, the mean of X, which is X bar, and the mean of Y, which is Y bar. So these are the things we need to enter in, and it might help you out if you do the following. You might put something right here like, and at least when you're solving this one, verbal. Well, it's being blocked, right? I'll put it over here. Verbal, math, verbal. I don't want to make any errors today. Because remember, the verbal is the Y variable. So this is where we're going to do the standard deviation of the verbal. You know, a little S right here before this. Put it here, and it'll be fine. We'll remember. Let's do this. Make it small right here and zoom out a little bit. Bring it over here to where we can see it. And okay. There we go. And let's bring up. And where are you at? There we go. So now we want to put in the value of the correlation. Correlation was told to us as 0.562. There we go. The standard deviation of the Y variable. We're going to make this a little bit smaller so we can get it. Oh, we got to zoom out a tiny bit. There we go. And there we go. Got it. We can now see it all on the screen one time. The verbal scores had an average of this. So this is the average verbal. Oh my gosh, Kayla. I wish I could give out points. I was seeing people were paying attention. Kayla, that was just a test to see who was paying attention. Wow, Kayla. Huge. Oh my gosh, Kayla, you saved me. I'm hitting every button. Points. I was like, wait a minute. And I was like, you're right. I was saying that at the start. I was like, what 4-letter word? It's math is the Y variable. So Kayla, huge savings right there. Kayla, remind me, be like, next time you'll be like, hey, Brian, give out to Kayla during class tomorrow. I'll be like, hey, Brian, give out some 500 points. I'll be like, you got it, Kayla. So remind me during class tomorrow. Or I'll be like, what? Why are we giving out 500? Remind me. Kayla, you earned it with that. You saved me right there from making a mistake. The standard deviation of the Y variable. So tell the class and be like, yeah, I caught Brian making a big error on the assignment. And I was like, Y variable would have reversed everything, would have been an error. Standard deviation of the Y variable, so all I can do is do a range check on it. Standard deviation, am I doing it right? Let me think right here. Math scores has standard deviation of this. Verbal scores had a standard deviation of 162.7. And the mean of the X, so the mean of the X, which is verbal, see, I'm trying not to make mistakes. I'm going to make a mistake. I prefer we can just paste the data into jump, and we just, boom, got the answer. And then the mean of math, which is Y. And what do you get from all this? You get your intercept and you get your slope all for free for just entering in the values. There's your intercept. Delete it down to just 3 decimals. Make sure to round all nice and neat right there. And then take your slope right here, and you got it. And so there it is. We've got the values put in there. Interpret the value of the slope right here. For each 1 unit increase in somebody's, and this X would be their verbal score, we would expect a blank increase of B1 in their math scores. For each additional point in verbal, the model predicts an increase. So it's making sure you know that the X variable is verbal, because for each 1 unit increase in verbal, we expect an increase of this by in the math score. Next, we have here, predict the math score of a student who has a 259 for the verbal. So the math score right here can be predicted, and we plug in here 259, times it by the slope coefficient, and add to it the intercept. And now we get the prediction. Looks pretty accurate, but one thing you can do with the solver, Regression Solver Pro, don't forget it, and it says round to the nearest whole number as needed. It's hard round right there. I believe this always turns out accurate. Please tell me something weird happens. It says predict the person who has 259. So you could go right here. And you see this rounds right here to 344. So that does the prediction for you also. For the last one right here, this is the most complicated one where we usually see the errors on it. Every single year, a student makes a perfect 1600. So if someone makes a 1600, what would you know about them? And I want you to look at this right here. What would you know about someone who makes a perfect 1600? As I copy this, this is where usually the mistakes happen. What would you know about someone who makes a perfect 1600? What would you know about them? So every year someone makes a perfect 1600, apparently. I don't know if that's true, but apparently. What would you know about someone who makes a perfect 1600? What would you know as I copy this down right here? So I think if someone made a perfect 1600, you could be like, oh, well, I know this about them. Exactly. So we know what they made in math. We know what they made in verbal. So we want to find the person's residual. So we want to find the answer to what we're looking for is residual equals actual minus predicted. So we want to find right here. That's correct. Okay. So we want to find out, we need to know somebody's actual math score. If you look, we're one component away from finding this already. So we would take their actual math score and subtract their predicted math score. So Kayla just said, we know what they made on math. They made on math an 800, so we know that. So that's what they actually made. Super smart, big cheaters, and random more phone calls. This is a weird day, scary day. So we know they made an 800 on math. Like, we know this. This person made an 800. They made an 800. So they made an 800 on math. So we also know on verbal, they made an 800. So can you see the one step we are away right now from finding the answer? Just say, hey, Brian, wait a minute. We need to solve for this now. Because we want to find the residual. Like the green thing I have right there is what we're interested in. We want to know this. So we're really close to finding it. We know they made an 800 on math. We know they made an 800 on verbal. We just need to find their what now to find the difference between these numbers. So we just need to find their what now, which we can find pretty easily. We're right there. So we just need to find their what now to find the difference between these numbers. One step away, and then we got this. It looks more complicated than it is, but break down the notation to be like, well, we know they made an 800 on math. That's their math score. So math equals 800. We know they made an 800 on verbal. So verbal score is 800. And then we have to find the difference between what they actually made and they were predicted to be made. So So the residual equals the actual minus predicted. All right, with the E. Exactly, Kayla. Great job, Kayla. Residual equals actual minus predicted. Color change pen magic. And so we're just going to plug in here the value of somebody's verbal. And so we'll multiply it. That looks like a multiply sign now. By the 800. And we're just plugging in the value of verbal to get their predicted math score. So to get their predicted math, once again, we're putting their actual value of verbal because we're just solving the equation. So they made an 800 on the verbal section, times it by the slope, add it to here, and we have just found their predicted math value. That is what they were predicted to make. So 644.433. I love you, word. Changing colors on me. And the difference between these two numbers will be the residual. We're going to copy that, do 800 minus the copy, and that is the residual. So they scored above what was expected. They were 155.567 above. So 155.567. Today's been a weird day, and I don't like it. No. I'm going to listen to this voicemail here. Probably just like, hi, we are like... round to 3 decimals, we got it. Yeah, let me listen to this voicemail. I've been getting like random calls. I'm gonna mute it.
Existing account is qualified for 50% off. In order to avail the discount, kindly call us back at...
My car's warranty? Is there something wrong with my car's warranty? Kayla, oh no. I've been getting those calls all day. Which one's question for? We might have just barely enough time right here. Is there something wrong with my car warranty? Oh no. Which one? Oh, it's close. Yeah. That could possibly be real. I don't know. You don't know what's real or fake these days. I'm not going to answer a call from a random person telling me to talk to him about something. Heck no. Which one, Destiny, is it? Destiny, can you be... Question 4, all the quizzes are different. So if you put part of it, we have 4 minutes. I'm going to try to speed run it. I'll probably be doing a speed run of it. So put part of it in the chat, Destiny. I'll try to speed run it. We'll try to get it done. I teach in 19 minutes. And Mubot's gone right now. He's lost to the void. Mubot. Mubot, where are you, man? There you are. No, Mubot.
I have Mubot now. He will not be returning.
Oh, man. Mubot. He's gone. He needs to come back. Destiny, what's the problem say in full? Like, what does the problem say? All the quizzes are different. I'll have to go here in a moment. All the quizzes are different. So, like, question 4, which quiz and what does it say? I'll try to speed run it here. For mine. So, the best thing to do is put part of the question in the chat and I can find it. I know most of the questions pretty well. Like, you say, like, you know, like the car's warranty or the price of a car, all these different things. And if it has a part F, I'm probably going to be speedrunning this. So just researchers collected data on the annual mortality route. Yes. Is this chapter 7? I think it's chapter 7. Or is it chapter 8? Is it chapter 7 or chapter 8? Oh, got it. Okay, let's do it. Speedrunning a question. Mubot, come save us, Mubot. Here we go. Speedrunning a question. Here we go. A little bit quick. Teach in 17 minutes. So here we go. Speedrunning question time. So there we go. Researchers collected data on the annual... if you're not here, you got to go away. Researchers collected data on the annual mortality rate, deaths per 100,000, right there, for males in 20 large towns and water hardness in terms of the calcium concentration per parts per million. There it is, the calcium concentration. Here we have the relationship, and the relationship on the right shows a fairly strong negative. And hard water, this is something you might have to know right here. Towns with harder waters tend to have lower mortality rates. You're welcome, the towns with harder water are going to have more calcium water right there. Here we go with the coefficient of the intercept. That is B0. That's just where it is in the output. Jump output looks the same way. So does our output. Whoa. What you doing to me? Don't you do that right there. I don't even know what I hit. Mubot is having his revenge right now.
I am Mubot.
You just having a good old time, Mubot. Gonna make us get something wrong here at the end. Nope. So there we are with the coefficient of the intercept and the coefficient of the slope. A lot more information right here, especially with the significance of the model and the uncertainty in the estimates. Interpret the slope of the model right here. For each 1 unit increase in the hardness of calcium, we expect the mortality to decrease. So for each 1 unit increase in the hardness, the model predicts a decrease in mortality. Remember, the X is the calcium, and we were predicting the mortality. Important to know, and there's a negative relationship. Explain what the y-intercept means. It's a little bit of an extrapolation from the model. The model is predicting right here, the model predicts that a town with 0 parts per million calcium, because that is the X variable, would have a mortality rate of intercept. This is B0, which is the value of the intercept right here, and that's when calcium is equal to 0. So make sure you do this one right here. That is the slope coefficient. You're welcome. Definitely, Tiffany. Awesome. The largest residual is this. So this is a positive residual. Always kind of like look visually and be like, okay, it's above the line because there's a positive residual. So the town had this many more than the model predict, and that's doing per million context, per 100,000, excuse me. So it has to be more because a positive residual means something's above the prediction line, negative residuals below the prediction line, and 0 is on the prediction line. So we were just doing residuals a second ago, but that would be a negative residual. The hardness of a certain town's water is 232. Use the equation to predict the town's mortality rate. So we're going to take this 232 here and plug it into the equation. As long as we don't do any bad math, we should be fine, but that's always a problem. Here on Stat 201. I'm going to type it in incorrectly. I'm going to make an error. There we go. We got it. And thank you, everyone. We started a tiny bit today. Thank you, everyone, for all the positivity. We're going a tiny bit late today. Start late, end late. Not here on Stat 201. The town is expected to have a mortality rate of this, round to 3 decimals. Good. We're doing good. And last but not least, we have explained the meaning of r squared in context. Blank percent of the variation y is explained by the variation x. So r squared right here is obtained as 80.5. There's the r squared. And the correlation would be negative. Watch out. The correlation, if you did correlation, 0.085, and we square root this, the correlation here is negative 0.8972. It doesn't ask that, but we should know it. So 80.5% of the variability, that sounds right to me. And I like to say 80.5% of the variation in y can be explained by the variation in x. 80.5% of the variability in the mortality rate can be explained or accounted by the calcium in the water. 100%, that's the way we roll. Here on Stat 201, Mewbot will be back here soon enough. Puppet Sharks are still here. You get it. With that, everybody, thank you so much. All the great work today. We'll be back here tomorrow. I'm about to go teach class. See the class in just 13 minutes. Bye for now, everyone. Bye. Keep up the great work on the assignments. You got this.